Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Railroad Transportation Safety District meeting for Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. I will now call the meeting to order. This public hearing involves the City of Lincoln, Lancaster County Railroad Transportation Safety District, commonly referred to as the RTSD, is subject to and adheres to the Nebraska Open Meetings Act. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is available for inspection and is posted by the entrance to this room. In accordance with Nebraska law, notice of the location and time of this public hearing, together with a summary of the proposed budget statement, was published in the Lincoln Journal-Star newspaper on August 31st, 2025. The RTSD agenda for today's meeting was posted on the RTSD website on September 3rd, 2025. The RTSD website is also accessible by links from both the City of Lincoln and Lancaster County's official government sites. In addition, on September 8th, 2025, the meeting agenda was posted on the bulletin boards located in City Hall, first floor, 555 South 10th Street. A copy of the agenda is also available at the entrance to this room. And just to our folks in the control room, our screens are flashing. Can you guys?
They can't. This is what always happens to us. I was just put it down.
And normally we can see what's on there, but we are getting it.
It happened on these two, and then those would keep working.
Yeah, not sure. There we go. They're up and running. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Item number 3. I've kind of gone through item 1 and 2. Item number 3 on the agenda is review of the fiscal year 2025-26 budget statement. Mr. Feigard.
Good morning, board members. Roger Feigard, Executive Director for the RTSD. And as we get started, for your recollection and for any of the public that is out there today, on the screen at the June meeting, you approved a draft budget that's really an expense budget, listing the activities for expenditures and the projects. The budget that's going to be before in the public hearing today and then considered in the second meeting has the same expenses, the same projects as you approved in June, with one exception. The exception being a reduction in commissions that would be paid to the county treasurer. We had projected that at $164,000. We're now estimating that at $141,000. So the commissions have gone down, and in a minute I'll explain to you why. But the primary expenses, projects, and activities that you saw in June are exactly what's in this budget today. Okay? So after the June meeting and looking at the status of our finances and where we were on 33rd and Cornhusker, the receipt of the federal rail grant, the increased interest income that's been coming in with our larger cash balances, and with Lincoln on the Move continuing, we come to the conclusion that the RTSD would operate very well this upcoming year using the same revenue amount as last year and not asking for that increased or the continuation of the previous levy. The board had made a motion to request the continuation of that levy, but in looking, we believed that we could do less. So, by taking the increased interest income, the Lincoln on the Move moving ahead, staying with the same revenue as last year, we're in a position to request a reduced property tax amount, which then in turn creates a reduced actual levy. So the county board agreed and held the revenue the same. So the original requested levy of 1.95 cents is for this year, if you approve in that budget. At the actual levy that was approved by the county board is 1.52 53 cents. So the levy went down about 0.4 of a cent. The property tax itself went down. So we feel real good about that, being able to hold down the costs and continue to manage and keep the project on track. And with that, then I would ask Tony. Jarena is here, and Kevin Nelson really helped on budget and getting stuff together. If the board has any questions, you can ask him. I'll have Tony go through the state auditor's required budget form.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Tony Jarena with HPE, and we'll go over the audit or the budget form for the year 25-26. If you look at the cover page, pretty simple. In the upper left-hand side, you'll see the actual dollar levy that is being requested with this budget, $7,198,765. That amount was agreed to by Lancaster County and also confirmed with Dennis Meyer, the Lancaster County Budget Director. And I kind of took a look back at the history of the levies, and this levy is actually less than the levy from 2021-22. So it's a nice decrease there. If you go over to the second page, there's a history of your activity for the RTSD. This is on a cash basis. The audit report is on an accrual basis, but these are all on a cash basis. The amount, the column on the left-hand side, that is from 23-24. That was actually no change from the prior year as it was presented in the budget. So we'll start with the middle column toward the top. We had beginning balances of cash investments and county treasurer's balance of about $36 million. Then for the year that just ended, June 30th, 2025, we were brought in about $7.8 million of real and personal property taxes. State receipts, motor vehicle pro rata at $20 million. State receipts, other state receipts, $318,000. On line 9, we have the property tax credit of $536,000. And then the other significant number is on line 14, which are the local receipts, which would include the Lincoln on the Move monies and a lot of interest income that is being earned for the RTSD. Going down beneath the bar there on line 19 are your operating expenses for the year. $276,000 approximately, and your capital improvements for the year, $419,000 approximately. So down at the bottom on line 30, we had an ending balance of $46,135,868. So the column on the right is the actual budget that's being proposed for 2025-26. The net amount of your real estate taxes expected, it will be about $7 million. Motor vehicle pro rata, $20,000. The other significant number are the local receipts. Again, that is being projected to be about $2.2 million. So this is, of course, mostly interest income and a little bit more of the Lincoln on the Move monies there. Expenditures, budgeted expenditures are operating expenses of $132. You may notice that it's a lot less than the prior year at $276,000. That's because that number does not include the county treasurer's commission. That number is down at the bottom right-hand corner, coming in at $141,000. So this is the way the form works. The state likes to see that separation of the commission. And then we have capital improvements budgeted for $55 million. A lot of that is going to be removed in the next few years as the construction starts. So that brings us down to an ending cash balance of less than the 50% requirement by the Auditor Public Accounts. And that would be about it. Any questions?
Questions before we go to public comment?
Just summing up then, gentlemen, because all of us serve dual roles here. We have city council people who serve on the RTSD. We have county board members and so when we're here, we're doing the work of the RTSD and we represent the RTSD, and then we go back and do our other roles, and as county commissioners, you know, we have the responsibility of the property tax levies, and appreciate, as a county board member, I want to say I appreciate Roger's efforts to work with us on finding the right levy amount for this year, considering all the dynamics that are going on. We are preparing to go into a really big period here in the future that we'll be talking about, but we also have to be aware of the impact we're having on the taxpayer. So I really feel like that adjustment is the right amount. And we see, so the only real change then on the expenditure side is we won't be sending as much to the treasurer's office, because the amount that treasurer's office is collecting is reduced, therefore the amount we owe the treasurer's office.
Correct.
So that pretty much sums up the difference between today and what we saw in June. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, real good, yeah.
I had one quick question. I think you said this, so maybe I missed it, but that local receipts,
On line 14,
yeah, 14,
Mm-hmm.
two. What's the difference, or what explains that change from
The increase
adopted
from-
budget to
the increase
and then-
between the prior year and the budget year.
Exactly.
That is the expected increase in interest income.
Okay,
Yeah, so,
significant.
and I think Lincoln on a Move is possibly about the same, I estimate.
290, pretty consistent, Kevin, 290, okay.
Last year we didn't budget anything for Lincoln on the Move.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know that was one of the
That
points of
makes sense, okay.
discussion. Since the voters passed that, we're going to
Sure.
include it in the budget.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
The only other question I had is line 20, the capital improvements. We went from 418,000 to 55 million.
Well, we have, yeah.
Are we
that's-
building
this-
the whole thing this year? I mean, is it
Good
going
luck.
to be done by?
We have to budget out that money because we've got into a where RTSD is in a situation where you have to prove that you're going to be using this money anymore. You just can't reserve it in another bank account. So RTSD is on the line now to pay out these monies, and it has to be for capital improvements. So that's why we're booking it all.
Okay, very good. More on that topic later. All right, any other questions, gentlemen, for Roger or Tony? Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that will complete item 3, then we'll move on to item 4, public comment. Any members of the public wishing to comment on the proposed budget? And I just want to make sure I got the record accurate here. Today, this meeting is the public hearing on the budget statement. Roger, you may want to take that off, so. Very good. All right, thank you. Any members of the public wanting to comment on the budget at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 5, which is adjournment. I'd entertain a motion.
I'd move, we adjourn?
Second?
Motion and second to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Carlson,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yep.
Vest.
Yes, motion carries 4-0. We will adjourn the public hearing on budget statement. With that, I will now call to order the Railroad Transportation Safety District meeting for Tuesday, September 9th. Let me move on to item 2 on the agenda, the Notice of Public Meetings Act. This meeting of the City of Lincoln, Lancaster County Railroad Transportation Safety District, commonly referred to as the RTSD, is subject to and adheres to the Nebraska Open Meetings Act. A copy of the Open Meetings Act is available for inspection and is posted by the entrance to this room. The RTSD agenda for today's meeting was posted on the RTSD website on September 3rd, 2025. The RTSD website is also accessible by links from both the City of Lincoln and Lancaster County official government sites. In addition, on September 8th, 2025, the meeting agenda was posted on the bulletin boards located in City Hall, first floor, 555 South 10th Street. A copy of the agenda is also available at the entrance to this room. One copy of the meeting agenda and all the materials being considered today are located at the dais, and complete copies of these materials are on file at the RTSD office at 949 West Bond Street, Suite 200. Item number 3 on the agenda is approval of the June 2nd meeting minutes.
I'd move approval.
I'll second.
Motion and second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. The minutes are approved. Item number 4, report of the statement of financial activity. Kevin?
Good morning.
Do you want the report up?
Yeah, you've got it. All right, good morning. Kevin Nelson, Assistant Budget and Fiscal Officer for Lancaster County. Attached to the agenda was the Statement of Financial Activity as of August 22nd, 2025. At that time, we had brought in total revenues or receipts of just slightly over $3 million. Most of that was in property tax receipts. Disbursements at that point were $55,000. Most of that was commissions paid to the county treasurer for collections of the tax receipts. At that point, our cash balance was $2,763,024, and our ending cash investment was $46,368,042. Just a reminder that ending cash balance of that dollar amount, those funds are being reserved for the 33rd and Cornhusker project that I'm sure will be discussed later in this meeting. Since our last quarterly meeting, we had $14.5 million of CDs mature. Those CDs had been invested between 5.27% and 4.21%. That 14.5 was actually invested with some additional dollars. So since our last meeting, the county treasurer has invested $17,350,000 in new CDs. Those interest rates range between 4.2% and 4.44%. Our county treasurer continues to look for the best rates possible and are getting us somewhere usually between that 4.2 4.5% range in that area. Since the date of this report, we've invested an additional $2.6 million of cash into additional CDs. That is the financial report as of August 22nd. Any questions?
Any questions for Kevin?
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. We need to vote to accept this report.
Move to accept the report as submitted.
Second.
Motion and second to accept the statement of financial activity. Please call the roll.
Schulte,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0 to accept. Item number 5, consideration of the fiscal year 2024-25 audit.
Tony Jarina and his staff is here to report on that, so. Probably electronic, it's all right here.
Good morning. My name is Luke Post, and I am an audit manager at HPE working with Tony Jarina. And I was your audit lead on site with our staff for a few days as we work through our fiscal year 25 RTSD financial statements. I'm going to go ahead and hit some highlights. Please, if there are any questions as I'm going through, please stop me and ask. So you guys have been talking budget today. This is a little bit different. So we're looking back for the previous fiscal year numbers, and these financial statements are on the accrual basis. So there are going to be some differences between the budget and the audit. So starting on page 1, for the financial statements. We're going to start with the independent auditor's report. Most important piece of that report is the opinion. And then in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects. So what that means is this is an unmodified audit report or a clean audit report. This is what you want. So moving on, there are some talks here about responsibilities of management. The RTSD is responsible for the preparation and presentation of these financial statements. As your auditors, we are responsible for the audit of those financial statements. So our objective is to obtain a reasonable assurance about whether these financial statements are free from material misstatements. To do that, we assess risk, identify risky areas. We gain an understanding of internal control. You know, when we come on site, we view invoices, we look at bank statements, we get bank confirmations, evidence to support our conclusion on that opinion. Some additional information, the required supplementary information, which is a budget to actual comparison on page 16. I'll show you that when we get there. And then some other information, which is not technically under the opinion, but you'll note there's some verbiage here. These other schedules include the amounts with the county treasurer, CDs, insurance coverage, and some tax information. Although that is not covered under the opinion, it is derived from the audit information that is under the clean opinion, so that information can be relied on. Starting on the face of the financials with the statement of net position, you will note that your cash and certificate deposits are higher, and that's just a culmination from a year of collecting taxes, continuing to invest those taxes, and continue to increase your interest revenue. Your cash at county treasurer is higher. That's mostly just a timing thing. That's just the amount of funds that were collected in June that have not been remitted to the RTSD until July. Your taxes receivable, you will note that is quite lower. That is your prior year levy was lower and your assessed taxes were lower. Thus, timing wise, there's less receivable at the end of the fiscal year. Your interest receivable is higher. This interest receivable are CDs where that interest has been earned, but that CD has not fully matured yet, so it hasn't been paid. So for your budget and cash payment, that is interest that hasn't come to the RTSD yet, but on the accrual basis, it is interest that's been earned by the district. And your intergovernmental receivable, just a note here on this 285, that is a Lincoln on the Move number. We did not have the final Lincoln on the Move number yet when we had these draft financials. We will have the final number. It's a very small change from the number we have here. Some small amount of liabilities, and net position is all unrestricted. Moving to the statement of activities for the government-wide financials, you will note expenses year over year are very similar. There are a couple upticks, couple downticks. Biggest uptick is construction projects, just some various railroad crossing projects, a little bit more in 25 and 24, but overall very comparative to the previous year. I kind of mentioned this earlier. You'll notice your general revenues for the real estate and other taxes is down, and that was by design. That is a lower levy, lower overall assessment for revenues. Your investment income, you will note, is up. That's a culmination of higher amount of CDs to be reinvested, keeping those interest rates high, and just more money to be invested. The intergovernmental revenue is just some money from the city and county. So there is another statement in here that's going to be very similar. So this is the balance sheet for the governmental funds. The RTSD only has its one fund, the general fund. So this is going to be very similar to the net position, other than one quirk of the governmental funds, and that is this deferred taxes. Per the accounting standards, these aren't expected to be collected within the 60 days. So they're backed out as a deferred inflow of resources. Here it is fund balance instead of net position. This committed equity is all for the 33rd and Cornhusker project. So very similar to your net position. You'll note there's a small reconciliation here, and the difference is that deferred taxes. The statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, this is going to be exactly as the net position. Revenues and expenditures, all the same explanations I had before are true here. Another reconciliation, the only difference here is this reconciliation and the change in fund balance to the change in net position is the change in the deferred taxes year over year. That is that amount. So then there'll be the notes of the financial statements. I'm not going to go over any of those in details. We're going to skip down to, as promised, the budget to actual required supplementary information. So I'll note again, I kind of noted at the beginning, this is budgetary basis, close to cash basis, whereas the audit is on the accrual basis. So there's just a comparison to your original final budget from last year with actual amounts, with their variances on the right side. And you'll note there's again a small reconciliation back to the government-wide basis, the financial statements. At the beginning of the packet, these revenue accruals were that taxes receivables, interest receivable we talked about that wouldn't be included in a budgetary basis statement. Similarly, here is your other information. So these reports are not under the audit opinion, but again, derive from the information from the audit and just some things the RTSD includes. So your schedule of account with the county treasurer, receipts and disbursements throughout the year. Again, this 264 is what the county treasurer has collected on the RTSD's behalf in June, but cash-wise doesn't come in until the following fiscal year in July. Similar as CDs here, various maturity rates, various interest rates and values, coverage of insurance, and then finally valuation rate, current collections in each year, and how much is left in that net tax receivable for each year. And then finally, there's one report in the back of independent auditor's report on internal controls, and the only thing I will highlight from here is a sentence in this third paragraph. Given all these information above, during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control, which is fantastic. And overall, we have no findings to report on this audit. I have one more letter I'm going to talk about. Do you have the governance letter in here by chance? If not, that's okay. I can just talk about it. There is one more report to the board I have in my hand. It is the governance letter. Basically, there's various topics in here we're required to report to you on. Everything is clean. The only section I call to your attention is the significant risks. These significant risks are what we identified as risky during the audit. That is improper revenue recognition and management override of controls. Those are mandatory identifications. If your financial statements were to be misstated, it's likely that would be done through an improper journal entry. So we classify that as a significant risk, and that deferred taxes estimate I spoke about on the fund statements as well. And you'll note the sentence underneath, based on our audit procedures, we had no findings in relation to these risks, but we're required to communicate those risks to you. So I like to call attention to that paragraph. Is there any questions for me?
I can't help myself, but when you say there is this risk of the reporting issues, how that would show up though, right? I mean, how would we become aware of that? If there's a risk of that, how would that become apparent to us? It's as a board, you want to be aware there's always the risk of improper journal entries. So as you're reviewing your budget reports, as you get them every time, remembering as a board, it's possible there could be a wrong entry in here, and just thinking about that as you do your review process. Again, those significant risks we're required to communicate on every audit, and revenue itself for every organization is always a significant risk. We spend extra time in revenue scrutinizing the numbers we get and getting evidence to support those. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Any questions for Luke on the audit? If not, we need to approve the audit.
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the 24-25 audit.
Hang on,
Please.
did Roger have something here?
Yes.
In that motion to approve, if you are comfortable in saying you're approving it, recognizing that minor dollar change in the Lincoln on the Move dollars, you could approve the report contingent on those numbers being changed, or we can bring it back at the December meeting with those revised numbers and approve formally then.
Gentlemen, what do you think? I mean, understand that Lincoln on the Move's not an exact figure at this time. It may change slightly.
I guess I'm okay with that. So I'll make the motion to approve it with the modifications for Lincoln on the Move.
Okay, thank you.
All second.
All right, we have a motion and second to approve with that contingency included. Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Schulte.
Yeah.
Motion carries 4-0. Item number 6, report regarding current budget status.
And we've gone through most of that. I have back up the sheet again. We're still fairly early in the year. I don't have any concerns of issues within the current budget and where we are. So we'll just, unless you have questions, particular.
No questions on that, Roger.
Okay.
So, very good. Item number 7, consideration of the 25-26 budget. And at this point, Roger, it's simply a matter of, do we want to approve the budget that we've talked about in both June and today?
Yes. I mean, we went through an explanation of kind of where we are in the expense budget. Mr. Gino went through the required budget forms that are going forward. We didn't have any testimony. My recommendation would be that you would approve that budget as presented, and we're ready to move ahead.
Forward.
So moved.
I'll second.
Have a motion and second to approve the proposed 25-26 budget. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Carlson,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yep.
Vest.
Yes, motion carries 4-0 to approve the budget. Item number 8, consideration of LTU barricade invoices.
Okay, consistent with how the RTSD has helped railroad and city and the county when appropriate with repair on crossings. BNSF did improvements along the highway or Nebraska Parkway corridor, 40th Street, 14th Street, Pioneers, and then Park Boulevard. And then they had an emergency repair and needed some barricade help at 33rd and Cornhusker. The 4 invoices for the variable message signs along the Nebraska Parkway were a week each, 2 sets of signs to making sure the public knows that those crossings were going to be closed. That was $500 for each week, each direction. So we have 4 of those invoices. So that's $4,000. And then the emergency repair, all roads came in, and LTU and the railroad just weren't able to get barricades there quickly, so the city jumped in and had all roads bring in the barricades, and the BNSF did the emergency repair. That invoice is $834.75. Again, this would be consistent, and my recommendation would be to reimburse the city for those 5 invoices.
The reason we, the board, have to take action on these, Roger, is because of the way the interlocals are written. I mean, these are small amounts, small
They're
expenditures.
small amounts, I guess, for simple transparency and making sure the board knows where we're spending money.
Okay.
And with recommendations from our legal counsel, it's appropriate, and with those interlocals saying we'll bring those bills to you for approval.
Okay.
They are small amounts, but I think it's important public discussion on those expenditures so folks know where we are spending the money.
Fair enough. I mean, this is something, as Commissioner Flowerday points out, there are things that we're, at our board meetings, there are things we're not going to deny. Certainly we want to partner with the city and the county to keep folks safe. So we have these invoices, gentlemen. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve the invoices as they're submitted.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Please call the roll.
Flowerday,
Yeah.
Schulte,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0 to approve. Item number 9, report of projects and crossing updates. Item A is 33rd and Cornhusker.
Yeah, I'll ask Chris Humphrey to come up and give us an update on that. And,
Okay, good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to introduce Ryan Leeper. Ryan is an engineer with the City of Lincoln, and he's an engineer and has experience on federal aid projects. He's going to be helping me out on the project, and I appreciate his willingness to help push this project through to get it to construction. So I wanted to introduce him. First, I'm just going to run through a status of the project, and then we'll talk about the interlocal agreement that's on the board's agenda for action today. We did have an RFQ that was out for final design services. We had one proposal that was submitted, and we did reach out to a couple other firms. They just thought it was not the right time for them to submit on the final design services. So we did go through an interview process and discussion on that, and the decision was that Olson would continue on. They've been doing the preliminary engineering NEPA for this project, and they would continue on for the final design services. So the next step with them is we're going to be reviewing the scope, getting that approved, and then going into fee negotiations for that. Also, the FRA, we had talked before, they needed to approve the environmental document that the EA, the environmental assessment that was there. They did approve that. We got the official FONSI, the finding of no significant impact, which was really, really great news. We got that last week. And then they also had designated FHWA to be our federal aid lead throughout the rest of this project. So we'll still be working with FRA, but FHWA will be the lead federal agency on this project. With respect to finances, the recipient change from the City of Lincoln to NDOT has been made official in August. So that just means that all the money will be running through NDOT. All the administration will still be with the city, with the RTSD. I will remain as the responsible charge. Ryan will be helping me out from the city's aspect of helping with those day-to-day activities with the project.
And Chris, talk a little bit more about why that's the right thing for us to do at this point.
Yeah, so with the City of Lincoln, when we have federal funding, typically all of the grants, all the federal dollars go through NDOT. They have processes set up in place, all of their specifications, their accounting systems. They're used to handling a lot of the federal funds that funnel through them. The contracts will be held with the state. They will be paying payments to the contractor for final design services. Since there's federal funds involved with that, they will be paying Olson directly for that. And then upfront, we talked about this a little bit last time, when we do enter in an agreement with Olson, the RTSD will be paying the city, who will be paying NDOT that 20% share for those costs. We will do that for final design services, for the contractor, and the right-of-ways, a little bit unique, but we'll be paying some money up front for them as well. So everything, this is just normal customary practice like we normally do for the City of Lincoln, because they're set up to handle that money, the federal funds.
They just have the expertise and the paths already created there. This is really the simplest way to go forward.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so we've been meeting with FRA monthly. It's anticipated that their funds will be obligated early next year. And so basically there's 4 things that we need to get that money obligated. One, the NEPA needs to be complete. So with the issuance of that FONSI, that was one of the steps that we needed. The second thing is FRA needs to formally adopt the plans. They've already preliminary reviewed those plans and had minor comments. It's just more of acknowledgement that, you know, we'd follow the federal aid process. And so we'll be resubmitting those plans for a formal approval prior to obligation. And then we will be resubmitting those plans with a little bit beefed up schedule and financial statement to them after the funds are obligated to. So we'll continue that conversation. There's a railroad agreement that the state is working on that will be submitted to the FRA as well. That's just a very high-level railroad agreement that basically says everybody is willing participant for the project. It's just a simple one-page agreement, and then the grant agreement between NDOT and FRA to receive that $66.7 million grant. So we're working on all of that. We have discussed pre-award authority with FRA, even though we're planning on using FHWA funds to fund final design and right-of-way services. We're still talking with FRA to have pre-award authority in the off chance that we would use FRA funds for either of those phases. And then there's 4 different agreements that we're working on. One's that railroad agreement I talked about. The second is the grant agreement that I mentioned. The third is a program agreement that's between the city and NDOT. And again, this is typical kind of normal customary practice when the city has a federal aid project. There's a program agreement that's associated with that. It just spells out roles and responsibilities and financial commitments to the project. And then we have the interlocal agreement that's in front of you today. So before we talk about the interlocal agreement, I guess I'll stop there and just ask if there's any general updates on the project.
I'm a little more acquainted with this process than a lot of citizens, but if someone says to me they've been talking about 33rd and Cornhusker forever, they're never going to build it, how would you respond to someone who's what's different now that gives us confidence we will go forward?
Well, one of the big steps that we have just completed is the NEPA process, and so we've been working on this project since 2015. And we've talked about this for a long time. I kind of consider these marathon projects, but we had the Pell study. We worked with the city, with the planning department on the sub-area plan, the corridor plan. We have our preliminary engineering. We have a pretty extensive public involvement process on this project, and with the FONSI from FHWA and the FONSI from FRA, we're ready to move into that next step with final design. So we're anticipating that would take about a year. NDOT is going to be helping out with right-of-way services, so the appraisal and the negotiations. If for some reason a property does need to go to condemnation, the city will be handling condemnation for it. But we have a lot of the the big boxes checked with the NEPA, and we're fully funded, and everybody's on board for the commitment to move this project forward.
So the fact that we've crossed the line on the NEPA approval and we have everybody rowing in the same direction would be reasons to be optimistic about.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
When would you anticipate breaking ground?
That's a good question. This is a very big project, and I'm hoping that we can package it in a couple different construction packages. Perhaps that we could separate, for example, the 44th Street crossing, and there's a couple of pedestrian side paths that maybe we could get to construction sooner than kind of the heart of the project, which would be the overpass, 33rd Street reconstruction, and Cornhusker Highway. So, best case for that would probably be, if there's right-of-way involved with those, would probably be 2028. I think we're going to be shooting to get to the, having a bid date in late 2028 for construction starting in 2029 for like 33rd Street and Cornhusker Highway. And it would probably be about a 2.5 year construction. So all of those details will be determined in final design, but right now that's our plan moving forward.
Good question. All right, any other questions for Chris?
Okay, so the interlocal agreement in front of you basically outlines responsibilities between the city and the RTSD, and also financial obligations for the project. So Basically, this is, says that the local share of the project, the RTSD will cover that up to $20 million. So if more than $20 million in local funds would be needed, then we would be coming back to the board and requesting additional funding. If for some reason the RTSD has paid in, we talked about paying that 20% of the local match up front. If we get to the end of the project and the actual expenses are less than that, then the RTSD would be receiving funding back for that. That's a very high level of what this agreement is talking about. NDOT, like I said, will be the lead on the right-of-way acquisitions. This agreement will be included in the program agreement between the City of Lincoln and NDOT as an exhibit. The city will become owners of all of the improvements that are constructed with this project. And I think that pretty much sums up everything that, for this agreement.
Yeah, I think that's true. So I just want to reinforce that this interlocal agreement is the RTSD's agreement and guarantee to the city to continue to lead and fund the project, which they need, and that interlocal agreement is attached to the city-state programming agreement, which then the state is assured with this interlocal agreement, if you approve it today, that the RTSD will provide those funds and the city will continue to use their process to run the project through the state. Again, it is still an RTSD project, although I've said this is transition time, running through the state process. Right away that gets bought will be bought in the name of the city. So we're excited to be here at this point and strongly recommend the board approving this interlocal agreement. If it's approved, then it goes on to the city and they will attach it to their programming agreement, which will have to come to city council for their consideration on the programming agreement. So major milestone. I think we are in the roller coaster and we are just right at the top. The things are in place for this to move ahead. Still a little ways away from spending some of the larger dollar amounts, but we might be talking about early right-of-way acquisition at the December or the March meeting. The final design is going well. That might be another way to continue to advance and move things ahead for property owners out there that are still waiting for action.
You said right-of-way acquisition, so will those come to us, or will that be done through the city? The right-of-way approvals by this agreement?
Well, it'll actually be through the city and state, but the city, the right-of-way process is to follow the Uniform Act. You have to get appraisals. The appraisals have to be reviewed, and then there'll be discussion amongst the state staff, city staff, and RTSD staff if we think those are appropriate offers, legal offers. But I'm guessing then the contracts actually would probably be signed by the city, or at least stuff would be bought in the name of the city, because when the project's done, it's theirs to own and maintain. And
So we wouldn't have right-of-way contracts on our agenda? Okay.
I don't believe so. And just kudos to NDOT. That is a huge aid to the city and to the RTSD to be providing those right-of-way services up front. And as Chris said, if we get to the point where negotiations aren't successful and we have to get into condemnation, then the city would lead the condemnation on behalf of the RTSD to get those done.
Mm-hmm.
Good question, man. All right. Any other questions related to the interlocal agreement between RTSD and the LTU? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the interlocal agreement.
I'll second.
Motion and second to approve. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Schulte,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Item 9C, miscellaneous or other railroad work. Roger.
Just would reiterate, BNSF has done a good job of coming in and working on crossings and trying to keep things smoothed up. It's always a challenge to make railroad rails and streets grades match and be smooth in all directions. I'm under the impression that BNSF also has an emergency repair at 33rd and Cornhusker. They'll be in there replacing some of the panels here in the next week or two as well. That's about all the other railroad work that I'm aware of at this point.
Okay, very good. Item 10, report of other matters.
I don't have anything else to report.
Very good. Moves us to item 11, C-Tracks Think Train Week.
Consistent with years past in coordination with Operation Lifesaver, we have prepared a proclamation again that outlines the importance of C-Tracks Think Train Safety Week. And we've prepared a proclamation. Thank you to the board members for getting that signed, and we'll date that today. If you want, I would be glad to read the proclamation into the record if you want, or not.
Gentlemen, I mean, this is the same proclamation I think we do every year. We're very consistent here. Would you like to hear it, or you've already signed?
I've signed
three
it,
out
so
of
I'm
four
good
have
with
signed
it.
it.
Maybe I would only just repeat the last whereas, which I think is important, wanting to remind folks. The Railroad Transportation Safety District encourages all residents of the city of Lincoln and Lancaster County to educate themselves on railroad safety practices. Be safe, look, listen, and live.
Amen. Very good. So we needed a motion to approve that proclamation, right?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Move approval of the proclamation?
Second.
Motion and second to approve the C-Tracks Think Train Week proclamation. Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Schulte.
Yes.
Absolutely important. Motion carries 4-0, but literally, it's important for everyone to be safe around railroad tracks. Item 12, communications correspondence.
Have anything to report?
All right. 13, non-agenda public items. Are there any members of the public wishing to comment on RTSD business at this time? Seeing none, we will move to adjournment. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion and second to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Carlson,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yep.
Vest.
Yes. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.